Welcome, and thanks for joining us, whether you're watching live or watching the recording of our conversation with two gentlemen tonight who are working to help veterans in our Cambridge and Dorchester County community. Before we go any further, I want to thank the sponsors of this Cambridge Community Conversation program, of course, WHCP Community Radio, Cambridge Association of Neighborhoods, the Dorchester Chamber of Commerce, and the Dorchester Star APG Publishing. Tonight, on November 11th, Veterans Day, we're addressing the issue of local veterans affairs. Joining us tonight are two men, heroes each in their own right, Reverend Ron James and Hugh Middleton. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for joining our program.
Thank you for having us, Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Our program format tonight will involve a discussion of the various projects and programs that each of these gentlemen are involved in. And also, as we discuss, questions can be posed on the chat or comment feature on YouTube or Facebook. If we're unable to get to the comments or questions during the hour of the broadcast, we'll work to get an answer after the program's over. Additionally, we're allocating time at the end of the show to share a roll call of local Dorchester County veterans' names. We'll share the names of the veterans and any veterans posted in the comments. I believe we're going to try to squeeze those in as well, as it's a time to honor and recognize veterans that are with us and also those who have passed on. Let's meet our guests. Our first guest is Reverend Ron James. Ron, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Doing great this evening, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Can you start by telling us a little bit about a project that I know that you're involved in right now? In fact, I was there covering the event earlier today at your post there in Federalsburg. But can you tell us a little bit about your job that you're doing at the VFW post up there?
Well, at the local post in Federalsburg, I am the commander, my 8th time, not consecutively. We are a Veterans of Foreign Wars post, which means that our members are actually veterans of foreign wars. And many people in the area get the idea that all of our members were either shot at or had shrapnel or bombed or something. But there are many, many veterans that were in war zones that did clerical work, supply naturally, cooks. Every branch of service has the same jobs as the civilian world. So there was a lot of people that were in a war zone, very eligible for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. But we try to help veterans. That's our motto. Honor the dead by helping the living is the motto of the VFW and its service office. And we try to raise funds, and most of the funds raised in the VFWs locally are from our proceeds from slot machines, which are allowed by the state of Maryland. Unfortunately, as everyone knows, 2020 has been a very, very strange year. And if you're not open, naturally, there's no slot machine income. So our revenue is down for donating to veterans programs in the local area right now. But we still help all that we can. We're there for the veterans to come out and have a home and a place to sit and chat with other veterans. And like today, we hosted the Eastern Shore Veterans Cemetery Veterans Day program, which is normally at the Eastern Shore Veterans Cemetery in Beulah, Maryland, the only state veteran cemetery on the Eastern Shore. But, you know, it rained today, so we could move it to the Federalsburg VFW post. And I had a ceremony there with Bruce Webster, the director of the cemetery. Chaplain gave the invocation and the dedication. And then we had the guest speaker was the senior vice commander of the Department of Maryland VFW, James Wade. He gave a speech on veterans. And then after the ceremony, we had a roast beef dinner for everyone that attended. So the VFW is out there trying to keep the local community going. We know the COVID crisis is real. We hope everybody comes to the VFW and is safe. We are right now still open for community activities. And we have things for the community that's open every Friday night. We have shrimp dinner. We have bingo on Monday night. We just had a hoedown for kids. Naturally, we had a drive around trunk or treat at Halloween. We try to keep involved in a local community because in Federalsburg, the VFW is the only local organization that actually has a home, someplace for people to physically come out and participate.
Very good. You were the chaplain for the VFW for a while. What did your duties entail when you did that?
I was the chaplain for the state of Maryland for 12 years in the VFW. And basically, that's being sure that every post in the state of Maryland has a chaplain. It's required by the bylaws of the VFW. They have a chaplain. And the post chaplain are supposed to become aware of everyone in their post that needs help from a chaplain, spiritual help, sometimes monetary help, any sort of help with bereavement services. And the state chaplain will assist the post chaplains, 158 VFW posts in the state of Maryland. And the department chaplain basically assists the post chaplains with their job, gives them training once a year. We have a training for everyone in the VFW to understand their position. Position of chaplain, I think, is one of the most important positions in the VFW, because you not only give military advice, but you give spiritual advice to these people. And many veterans need spiritual help. Veterans have different needs and problems than civilians. And I served as chaplain at each state meeting. And then we would go each year to the national convention, and the chaplains would all get together from every state and figure out what problems we had, what problems we didn't have. And of course, as a chaplain in the VFW, it's like being a chaplain in the service. You're non-denominational. You serve everyone, the Catholics, Jews, Hindus. You do it all as the chaplain. It's a very, very interesting job.
It sounds like it. I remember when I was overseas that a chaplain, he actually had his chaplain's mate, I guess you would call it. He loaned me their satellite phone for a really well-timed call home. So that was a good example of a chaplain providing a service that may not have been written down, but it was definitely a need that he met. Ron, I had the honor of joining you guys for your Vets Helping Vets radio show that is broadcast twice a week here, I believe, weekly on WHCP. But tell us what kind of topics you cover and what what kind of guests you would be looking for, and anything else that you would think would be relevant for how Vets Helping Vets radio show helps vets.
Well, thank you for that plug. We do have a Vets Helping Vets radio show here on WHCP, and it airs twice a week, Sunday at 3 p.m. and Tuesday at 1 p.m. Or as one of the radio personalities says, Mike says, for you military people, that's 1,500 on Sunday and 1,300 on Tuesday. There's usually three of us in the show: Jack Lewis from Hurlock, Mike McGee, who's from Hurlock, and myself, basically from Federalsburg. But we try to give out the latest news from the Veterans Administration. Every week there's different news from the Veterans Administration, and we try to tell benefits that people can derive from the Veterans Administration. These aren't entitlements. These are earned benefits that each person in the military has earned. And you only had to have been honorably discharged. You could have been in 1 week. We have, as the radio show is an offshoot of our other group, and that is the Vets Helping Vets of Delmarva. We meet every Friday at 9:30 in the Hurlock American Legion, Hurlock, Maryland. And it's, free coffee, donuts, and we sit around, and there's veterans. And usually every week there's someone from every branch of the service except the space branch. But we have Coast Guard, Marine, Army, Navy, Air Force, all there. And we just discuss issues that they're having with the VA, or we have guests come in and explain what's going on with the VA. We had mortgage company people come in and explain VA loans. We try to keep people abreast of what's happening with the VA. Every week, there's news from the VA that can benefit veterans. We try to push certain things. Like, we would like every veteran, that's anybody that's been in the service, get in the VA system. You might not need it now, but as I say, if you're in the system, you're in the system. And if you're a young guy with a great job and plenty of insurance, life is good, and then you got that new motorcycle and you get slammed by a tractor and trailer, and you're in the hospital, and you're in the hospital for months or even years, your insurance has run out, you've got no income. If you were in the VA system, they would take over It's too late to do it when you're in the coma. Get in the VA system now. And we hate to use that example, but that's a good example of people that don't need it, so I'm not going to go get it. When you do need it, it takes a while. So get in there now while you're in good health, while you can go down there. Just get in the VA system. We put out very important phone numbers. And I'm going to say most people did not know that there is a very important phone number. And I urge every veteran's dependent, write this phone number down or put it in your cell phone. It is the VA hotline. And there is a VA hotline that was set up by the President of the United States, and it's a direct line to the White House. And it is, let me get you here. It's a direct line to the White House. If I can pull up my phone here. Here we go. Direct line to the White House. And it bypasses the chain of command set up by Trump, our commander-in-chief. And he said, don't worry about going through the chain of command as a military person. 855-948-2311. 855-948-2311. If you have any problem or any question with the VA, you don't like the answers you're getting, go straight to the top. I've used this 3 times. Sometimes I didn't like the answer, but it was the correct answer, and it's the law. It's a VA hotline to the White House. You can't get any bigger than that. If you're in an argument with somebody and they say yes, you say no, call the White House hotline. Get the argument resolved. There's another number that is more important now than ever, and we'd also like everybody to write that down, and that is a Veterans Crisis Line. There are so many veterans in crisis now. We all hear stories about suicide and all that. There is a Veterans Crisis Line, toll-free number, 800-273-8255. And we try to give these numbers out every week on the radio show so people understand just a phone call away. Everyone has a phone in their pocket nowadays, and you can get instant help for a veteran that needs help. The help is out there. The Vets Helping Vets group, we don't have any money. We are a nonprofit group, but we have no money. We consider ourselves a brain bank of people that have money, or where we can send a veteran that is in need or crisis. We know people. Now, the VA is not going to help a veteran's child in school because it's not the veteran. But if a veteran has a child in school that doesn't have the right shoes or the right backpack or the right lunchbox or can't get school supplies, would you believe there's a car club that has a benefit every year to make money to help veterans' children? They'll buy school clothes for these children and whatever they need, the right shoes. Veterans come to us that are in crisis. They need a home, or they need to find a place to stay. We know places in this area where veterans can stay, or we know where to send them. We have the phone numbers. There's a local group run basically out of the VFW in Felsberg, a local group called Lieutenant Dan of Delmarva, and it's all capital letters, LTDAN, stands for Local Troops with Disabilities and Needs. Again, if a veteran comes up and says, I'm getting ready to lose my house, I can't make my payment, or I need a ramp built, or my car needs gas, or I've got some other problem, Lieutenant Dan is a one-stop, want-to-help place for veterans. Veterans can go to Lieutenant Dan and get help one time. That's all they're going to help each veteran. But if a veteran is in need, he can go to Lieutenant Dan and get instant help with any problem he has. We also have the hotline for the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, George Owens in Maryland. He has a slush fund. He has a director in one of his departments that runs this slush fund for veterans' needs. And this veteran can call up, and if he's in a certain income group, they'll help him with rent, a car payment, gas, electric bill, a medical bill that came up that he can't pay. So there's money in the state for veterans. Again, the Vets Helping Vets is like a local brain trust of all these numbers and places and people that we can call. Some veterans need help right now. Veterans are some of those people that don't like to ask for help until they really, really need help. Sometimes it's too late, but we can get them instant help. So again, we throw our phone numbers out on Vets Helping Vets. Mine is Rev Ron, and it's 410-829-6308. Unless I'm in a meeting or doing something where I have to have my phone shut off, a church service or something, I'm always there. My voicemail is all available. Call me. I will get back to you. If a veteran out there needs help, we want to help them, and we want to honor veterans because that's what veterans need. They need to be honored.
Well, we need to be honored and we need to stick together. And another thing that from my military experience, that I think is builds on what you're saying is you said, put these numbers in your phone now. And, for the crisis line particularly, or if bad things happen, when you're riding high or when things are good, you don't necessarily need assistance in the same way that you would need it when things are not good or when things are weighing heavily on you. So those are important things to put into your phone, to be able to share that contact info with somebody, just shoot it right over onto their iPhone. But to have that infrastructure in place, and like you say, to have your brain trust of people there who have walked the path before. When you try to get a VA loan, it's great terms if the process is going smoothly. And having been through that process, and an element of it didn't go smoothly, and to be able to reach out to people that know the ropes a little bit. Getting through the system, what I'm hearing from you is that there are people there that you don't have to fight it alone. And if we build on that to the bigger issue and what you said about the VFW's mission, and I'm a member of the VFW here in town, post 7460, is that's how you honor our brothers and sisters that have gone before us. That's how we honor their memory, is by sticking together and being there for each other in a time of need. Mr. Ron, one thing we'll close with for this segment for you, I'm here talking with Reverend Ron James, is your involvement in Beulah. If you could just share with us what goes on up at the Beulah Cemetery here in northern Dorchester County.
Beulah is the Eastern Shore Veterans Cemetery, and it's in what they call Beulah. Beulah is not incorporated, but it's between Preston and Hurlock, Maryland. Everybody knows where Preston Ford is at. It's 2 miles past Preston Ford. It's the only Maryland State Veteran Cemetery on the Eastern Shore. There are 5 Maryland veteran cemeteries in the state. A veteran, once he gets to the gate, everything is free for his interment. Free grave liner, free burial, free plot, free perpetual care. There's a chapel there. They can do service for the veteran. And again, I know nobody thinks about dying. It's the least thing that we could want on our mind, but every veteran should get pre-approved to be buried in one of the state veteran cemeteries. And it's as simple as going on the line to MDVA, which is the Maryland Veterans Association, and that will give them a little link to get registered in the local veteran cemetery. And give them your DD-214, a very simple form, just a 1 page, got about 8 questions on it. Send them your DD-214, proof that you're a resident of Maryland or have been a resident of Maryland, and then you're registered. And when you're deceased and they're wondering, where are we going to put this body? Does he have a grave? What's going on? Anybody knows you're a veteran can call the veteran cemetery and they say, yes, he's pre-approved. We got a place waiting for him. So I encourage all veterans to get pre-approved, and you can also have your dependents buried in the veteran cemetery. If you're a veteran, your wife or your dependent children can be buried in the veteran cemetery also. There is a small fee for dependents, not much, but every veteran is entitled to a burial place in the veteran cemetery in Beulah. Perpetual care. It's a beautiful, beautiful cemetery. The cemetery committee, a group of civilians that kind of watchdog of the cemetery, every year plans Veterans Day services and Memorial Day services and kind of touches base with the Wreaths Across America for laying the wreaths and round up people to put the flags out for Memorial Day. It's a great place to go. If you're a veteran, you'll be among friends. So that's what I keep saying. Even if you have another burial family plot somewhere, still get pre-approved for the Veterans Cemetery in Maryland. So Maryland knows how many veterans they have. And if they run out of property, they can always go after more because they say, hey, we've got 4,000 more people approved here. So I love the Veterans Cemetery. I encourage everyone to take care of it. It's a great place to be buried. It's great for family to go out and visit loved ones that are deceased out there. It's a beautiful place. The state has done a great job. The chapel there plays music. The chapel's a nice place to just go and reflect if you're a veteran or if you're a family of a veteran to go out to the Veterans Cemetery. And again, if you'd like more information on Veterans Cemetery, Rev Ron, 410-829-6308, president of the Veterans Cemetery Committee. And if you want to see something there, we pay for it. The state doesn't pay for everything. The bell tower, cemetery committee paid for it. The nice chairs that people sit in when there's a funeral service, cemetery committee paid for that. Picnic table for the workers, the gazebo, the benches all around the cemetery committee. State does not pay for that. Cemetery committee has to buy all that stuff.
Rev Ron, thanks for the breakdown on those items. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Cambridge Community Conversation. This is a special one for me as a veteran here on November 11th. If you're watching this taped, of course, hopefully it still is informative to you. Rev Ron, we'll be back to you in a few minutes, but right now I wanted to introduce and talk to our next guest. And I want to congratulate him because he recently became the executive director of a very special place in Dorchester County, a place that I'm not sure a lot of people know about. I'm not sure the exposure is there. So I won't tell you about it. We'll ask Hugh Middleton to tell you about it. Hugh, thanks for joining us. Tell us some about Patriot Point.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, and happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. And Reverend Ron said a lot of great things about the VFW. I've been a lifetime member for over 20 years, so it's a great organization and does great things. But yeah, actually, I was recently appointed as the general manager of Patriot Point. And you're right, it amazes me how few people know about what Patriot Point is and where it is. It's right here in Dorchester County. It's in our backyard. And Patriot Point is a retreat for wounded veterans, their families, and their caregivers. And 294 acres, almost 2 miles of shoreline. The place is absolutely amazing. And it's kind of a unique story for me to be where I am now. And the first time I went there was about 4 years ago when I was actually invited up for the Grand National Waterfowl Association hunt. And I could have been sent to any number of probably 8 or 9 different properties to do the duck hunt. And I never even heard of Patriot Point. I go down and it's dark out. I show up there, shoot a bunch of ducks. And for me, things happen for a reason. From 4 years ago to now taking over as general manager and moving onto the property is really a dream come true. And it's a pretty magical place, and it is a very special place that does a lot of special things for our veterans. And we have a plethora of events, of activities to do. Everything from duck hunting. We raise about 2,000 ducks every year. We have we put them out in the impoundment so veterans can come up and hunt. Everything is supplied. They don't have to bring their own weapons. They don't have to bring their own ammo. We take care of that. But even outside of the hunting season, there's so many different other activities, from crabbing, fishing, stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, or really doing nothing and just relaxing, because there are so many vets out there who literally have not come out of a room in 3 or 4 months. And for them to be able to come and experience the outdoors that Patriot Point offers is mentally healing. It's physically healing. It's spiritually healing. And what we do there is even if a veteran doesn't know another veteran, through peer-to-peer communication and just having like stories, it all sorts to come out. And it, I've often seen it where it's almost like a faucet. We get a trickle at first, and then once the ball gets rolling and vets get talking to each other, they all have some sort of similarity of the same problem, whether it's PTSD, TBI, traumatic brain injury, a physical injury. I've had one of my very good friends I was in the SEAL teams with is a double amputee. He's been up there several times hunting. It's a place to get out. It's a place to heal. It's a place to have a good time. It's a place for a camaraderie. And it's a place that I would say is sort of unrivaled elsewhere in the country. I know there are many, many, many great veteran locations throughout the country in Texas, Montana, Idaho, but to have the location that we have and to do all the activities that we offer to vets, it is pretty special.
Hugh, I know from our conversations before and what little bit I've read about it, it is a special place. At this point, we're going to ask our wonderful production team if they'll get some of these slides up to give, because some of us are visual learners, and to give you a chance, Hugh, to explain some of these pictures as they come up, as far as the kind of activities. So here we go with the first slide.
Yeah, so we underwent a major renovation over the last couple of years, and one of your listeners just chimed in with, it has a unique history. Let me start out with that. So what you're looking at here is the caretaker's quarters barn. There's a full gym there that was donated by Under Armour, and then to the right is what we call our welcome center or office. So the original property, the original house was built in the early 20s, 1924, by a silent movie actress named Claire Bow. She was a little short, fiery redhead. And interestingly enough, she never made the transition to talkies, to speaking movies, because she had a very harsh New York accent. And she was never able to, through speech coaches or what have you, was never able to get rid of it. So she never made that transition. But the other interesting thing is down there is a basement in the main house, and there's the original foot bar rail from where she had a bar there, and during Prohibition actually brought up booze, liquor by boat, and she entertained you name it, Hollywood, DuPonts, Roosevelt's, anybody that anybody could think of that was in the hierarchy of the early 20s. And we often wonder, how did she find that place? And, we always look for if there's local historians that have any information, any details. We would love to have photos of that era. I know she had two sons that I think the last one died about 11 years ago. But, we would just love to know more of the history of the place. But so the gym there, state-of-the-art gym, again, that was donated by Under Armour. Everything that really rolls in there is through donations or different events that are held. A lot of them, unfortunately, this year have been postponed or canceled. As I was saying, if you go to the next slide, the next photo, we have a rack of kayaks where veterans can get out and fish. We have stand-up paddle boards. We have two docks that people can fish and crab off of. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that it's a pretty large complex. And Mr. Bugg, Jim Bugg, who actually, he did start the Yellow Ribbon Fund, which is a veteran support organization as well. And he also started a lot of, outdoor charity type organization for youth, to get youth kids out hunting and fishing and things like that. So he started it out, and it's made that transition, and has stayed within, to be a military, and a wounded veteran retreat. So what he did and what he started was pretty special. And so actually in April 2021, it'll be the 5th anniversary of Patriot Point, when the property was purchased, and it actually falls under the Military Bowl Foundation. So the Military Bowl, when they have it every year, quite a bit of funds that are generated from the game go into the property. And the Patriot Point and the charity itself is kind of unique in that there's only one paid position. None of the owners, none of the executives, no one else makes any sort of salary, and everything goes back into the property and back into making it, what it is for the veterans. And some of the groups that we get multiple groups that come. We get, if you show one of the slides, next slides here, USO Metro. They come down a couple of times a year. We get groups from Texas. Leashes of Valor was just recently there. So we get groups that want to just come and utilize the facility, and they do their own program. We get groups that come that we kind of sponsor and do everything for them, do the hunts and the fishing, the kayaking, and things like that. And and then some of them's just sort of a mix match. Some of it's sponsored, some they do their own type of events. But because the property has so many options, there is an endless list of things to be able to do, be able to get outdoors and experience life here on the Eastern Shore. That's so special to so many of us. And one of the problems, Reverend Ron talked about it, is because of this year and the COVID thing, several of our fundraising events have been canceled or postponed until next year. So typically, it costs about $350,000 a year to run Patriot Point. Currently, we're down about $275,000, and again, that's because of different events being canceled or postponed. So it is crucial and vital for us to get the word out, and this is why this program and others are so important. Is people who want to donate, people who want to volunteer their time. There are a never-ending list of things to do on the property. They can do that, and if you go to our website, patriotpoint.org. You can get on there and you can do donations. You can sign up to volunteer your time there. And also part of the major renovation that we've been going through this summer is, and we're just about done, hopefully be done, at least the paver part of it next week, but all in front of the main house, brand new paver driveway. And you can actually get on the website and you can donate a paver. That's $1,000. You put your own special message on there, whether it's for a veteran, a family member, you name it, and that money goes into Patriot Point, but you get a sort of a signature paver that goes into the driveway. But we've got 3 new flagpoles that are going up and a tremendous amount of new plants and trees that are going in, and it's really, really going to be special. It's around the flagpole area is really kind of a reflection area where you can just sit out there, you watch the sunrise, sunset, stare up at the American flag, and just be appreciative of what veterans have done for this country, what the military does for this country. And, you folks out there that haven't heard of Patriot Point, just be very thankful that there are places like it and, other veteran organizations around the country that take care of the folks that have taken care of us.
Hugh, you described it as a place of therapy and of healing, and for vets to be able to connect with each other in ways that they may not be able to connect otherwise. So if, how do vets go there? It's not just a free for all, but how do vets get to attend some of the programs there?
Right. The best way is through the website, through the contact link on the website. Our director of operations, Lauren Schramm, does all the scheduling. And yes, so you can imagine we can't have, ones and twos of every veteran type, that show up. It is wounded veterans, and they have to be there's a vetting process, and Lauren takes care of that. Usually it's different groups, already established veteran charity organizations who contact us, and then they come up and and stay on the property. But there has to be proof that you are a veteran. Your DD 214. We ask for your VA certification letter that we don't get into whatever your specific injuries were, what your medical problems are, but it shows what what level of percentage of disability that you have through the VA, what your rating is, and then so we do a little bit of background check there. So, but again, it's through another group. So like the USO or the Leashes of Valor or other groups out of, around the country that contact us, let us know that they're interested in coming, and then we get them on the schedule. And, we do during hunting season, we do hunts on Wednesday, typically Wednesday and Saturday. So those slots fill up very quickly, but year round, there's something to do. So if you can't hunt, then there's plenty of activities to be able to come and enjoy the outdoors.
So you help vets that have sustained injuries, and we've talked about this some, about the level of physical accommodation. What kind of physical disabilities or injuries are you able to accommodate there in your facilities?
Actually, all. We've had our guest house and our main house, or what I call the lodge, both have wheelchair lifts to be able to get in. We have ADA compliant showers to be able to get in if you're in a wheelchair or amputees. But like I said, I've had my buddy up there who's a double amputee. We've had triple amputees. We've had all sorts of injuries, that people have, and as we know, some injuries are visible, but a lot of them are not. And those that are, caused by traumatic brain injury or, concussions and PTSD, those are hard to recognize. But we really don't have any limitations on who can and cannot come. We want, as many wounded vets that we can help as we can, and as we can accommodate. And we have room space or bedding space for about 20. That's inside buildings, but we've had groups come that camp out. They bring tents. An organization called BZO comes a couple of times a year. They bring kids down, which that's important too. So you can bring kids. It's kid friendly, and they camp out in tents. It's a little tough in the spring and summertime because of the mosquitoes, but they tough it out and have a great time.
I guess they learned the hard way about the Taylor's Island Air Force down there.
Precisely.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Cambridge Community Conversation. We're hearing now about Patriot Point and the new general manager there, a Navy SEAL, Hugh Middleton. Now, Rev Ron, we were talking recently about your service when you were overseas, and one particular anecdote about the technology that you were privy to that no one else was. Can you share that anecdote with us?
Yeah, it was it's a funny story. Now, in 70 and 71, we were flying planes that had infrared technology that all the TV clickers now and the hunters all have infrared. Everybody has infrared. And back then it was a big secret, this infrared technology. And we would fly over the area with infrared, and troop movements were taking place usually at night, and they could not figure out how these troops were getting from point A to point B. They just couldn't figure it out. So we flew over from infrared, and on the infrared, they showed these bridges big enough for them to move tanks and trucks and troops across. And the bridges were like 12 to 18 inches under the water. So you couldn't see them in the daytime. You couldn't see them in a photo. You could fly and not see this bridge, but at infrared, this bridge stood out like a normal bridge. So right away, the U.S. forces came in, bombed this, I'm going to call invisible bridge that you could only see on infrared. But infrared was such a new technology at the time that you couldn't go out and say infrared. Somebody would grab you and take you away. You're giving away secrets.
Sounds like the county public works department should look into this type of bridge to get to Elliott's Island, maybe, or maybe Great. So, Reverend Ron, what kind of naval plane were you on?
Well, I was flying KC ECWC 121s, or Willie Victors, we called them. I was born in 1950. These planes were built in 48 and 49. The planes were much older than I was. So it was not, I was by means no new aircraft, not a jet. I was Navy. The planes were way, way too big to even land on a carrier. So I was the aviation Navy, and that I was in the air, and on our Vets Helping Vets radio show, we have Jack Lewis. He was a submariner. He was under the water. So we got kind of the full spectrum of Navy people on the Vets Helping Vets radio show.
Well, we've got, I'm outnumbered here, but you can see to all the listeners or watchers, you can tell that this is a gathering of vets because we're sitting around telling war stories. Hugh, can you tell us a little bit? You're a Navy SEAL. Can you tell us a little bit about the training or other anecdotes that you might want to share with us?
Certainly. Well, if you've ever watched the History Channel, you've seen the story of, or different stories of the SEAL training, which is called BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition School. I graduated in Class 180 back in March of 1992. I'm sort of dating myself, I guess. And it's classified as the world's toughest military training. And I tell people, physically, most people could do it. It really boils down to how much suck are you willing to put up with. And that's it's a big mental game. How cold are you willing to be? How miserable are you willing to be? How sandy and covered in, we used to call it being a sugar cookie, and being in the Pacific Ocean in the middle of the wintertime at night, and, diving in it and whatever. But it's a big mental game. And it's, I would never, I would go through it again right now if I could. There's such a camaraderie there, and we had such a great class, and you get through because the person next to you, it's everything is done with your swim buddy. You never do anything by yourself, because in combat, if you're off by yourself, then you've got bigger problems. But we went through. I was fortunate enough to be able to. I wasn't injured. I didn't get injured. So we started with, I think, about 136, close to 140 when we classed up, and we graduated with 36 originals. We had a few people roll in from other classes who had been injured, but the attrition rate is exceptionally high. And the injury rate is exceptionally high because you're going, nonstop. And then everybody talks about Hell Week. That's going, breakout is on Sunday is what they call it. And then you don't get secured until Friday, and you get on average somewhere between 2 and 3 hours of sleep during that whole period. That's not per night. That's during the whole week. So you're constantly moving, you're constantly thinking. And the point of it is to break you down physically and mentally, because that's what is, probably a situation that you're going to find yourself in. And you got to be able to think, no matter how tired you are, and you got to be able to support the buddy next to you, and you got to get through it, no matter what. There is no quitting, and you just got to do what you got to do, and you got to make it through it.
That sounds like a metaphor for a lot of other things. So I remember from watching some of those shows that there's a bell you can ring. Was that something where you could opt out at any time?
You volunteer, to go through that process. And yes, there is a bell, and when you ring it, there's no questions asked. You are done, and there's no second chance. You ring that bell, and you're gone, and you don't come back. We did have, during Hell Week, actually the very first night, it's sort of a domino effect. With the very first person decided to quit, there was a whole line of them, and the instructors are sitting in their nice warm trucks with bullhorns saying, it's okay, don't worry about it. There's nice warm coffee, hot coffee and donuts in here. No one will say anything if you quit. Just go ahead and come on out of the water. And so they try to encourage you to do it. But again, it's a mental game, and you just got to overcome it, because you ring that bell and you're done, and off you go to. At the time, you went on a ship and you were hazed gray and underway.
I have an interesting story on SEALs. Every year, the VFW gives a military award to some branch of the military. And the year that the SEALs took out Obama, who'd they take out?
Bin Laden.
Bin Laden. They gave it to the SEALs, and this Navy admiral with a chest full of medals came. Youngest looking admiral I've ever seen, very fit and trim, in charge of all the SEALs in the Navy. And he says, as a brief bio, his father went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis. And as soon as his father graduated from the Naval Academy, he probably went into the Air Force. So his father became a general in the Air Force. So since his father was a general in the Air Force, this young guy got admitted to the Air Force Academy. And he said he went through his 4 years of Air Force Academy, and then to fix the heinous mistake his father made, he got out of the Air Force Academy and joined the Navy.
I've had a couple of those. Actually, a guy in my buds class was an Air Force Academy graduate. He was actually the first quitter that night of hell. And I'm not making that up.
Well, in my experience, you find some of the people that were quick to tell you that they were tough sometimes weren't the toughest. And people have said before about Marine training, oh, gee, how'd you do it? And I think it's the opposite of SEAL training, although they did put a really high emphasis on making you miserable and uncomfortable. But there was no quitting. And for me, the realization was that the quickest way out was just to do what they said and do it quickly and efficiently. So there was no leaving there. The best way to get along was just to make it happen. And as far as Marines go, there's a story of that I just learned. I just talked with a Marine from Talbot County who's 92, and it illustrates something that's true about a lot of veterans. Veterans that were in danger, or some that weren't. If you're in a submarine or on a carrier deck or any variety of other things, flying in a rickety old plane made in 1950, those are inherently dangerous and it can be stressful. But a lot of service members I find would downplay their service or the danger or the stress or the contribution that they made. And this gentleman, actually, he did downplay it. He served after World War II and not in combat. And he just emphasized that none of the credit was to him and that the Marine Corps gave him more than he gave the Marine Corps. But I don't think that's true at all. And I think that, veterans, like we've talked about, need to stick together. But he told me a story I want to share about one of his friends that he made here in Dorchester County, about a young man that was born in Caroline County. And I actually wrote about this. It's going to be coming out in an upcoming edition of the Dorchester Star. And just a fascinating story about this young man that was born in Caroline, and he enlisted straight out of high school when he was 17 at the peak of World War II. And he joined the 3rd Battalion of 9th Marine Regiment, and 3-9, that unit landed on Iwo Jima on Red Beach. And Red Beach is right at the foot there of Mount Suribachi. And Iwo Jima was just an absolutely terrible, terrible battle, and just catastrophically bad. Over 20,000 Japanese defenders that were just determined to fight to the death, and just a huge casualty toll on both sides. But this local son fought and was actually awarded the Bronze Star on March 1st of 1945. He was awarded the Bronze Star because he repeatedly and purposefully exposed himself to enemy fire so that he could draw the enemy fire to his position and show his comrades where that fire was coming from, so that they could try to eliminate that threat. The next day, he was actually really severely wounded by a sniper. So severely wounded that when he was, the corpsmen initially thought that he was not alive. They saw him breathing and he got triaged, and they took him to a ship where because there's limited medical care, there were so many injuries. Of the 22 officers in his battalion that landed, all of them either sustained an injury or were killed. So just it was super intense fighting. His unit was part of the only non-illuminated night clearing action, and he told his family a really intense story about having to clear these individual Japanese snipers out of they called them rabbit holes. Just a very intense situation. And then he lived for 3 days in a situation when I don't think that they expected him to live. They just, the corpsman came around and gave him morphine every 2 hours, and then they realized he was going to make it. And he just didn't have the capacity to take care of people, but they moved him to a hospital ship, and then he recovered in Guam. he came back to Dorchester County, and he was hanging out he decided to live and work here in Cambridge. He was hanging out at Long Wharf, and he saw a girl he had never met before. And he said to his buddy next to him, he said, "I'm going to marry that girl." And he did. And they were married for 54 years. And just a really neat story. And I encourage you I'll shamelessly plug the paper, but just because that story's in it, about this young man. His name was Kenny Gerald, and he lived the rest of his life. He worked for the telephone company for 35 years, and his family lives in the house that he lived in still there near Hurlock. So just almost a movie script when you look at all the things that happened in his experience. Just a really unbelievable story. But just like those two instances, I think really wrap up a lot of what a veteran in America is. A lot of times it can be either somebody who answered his nation's call and he served honorably and didn't feel like he ever did anything really important. But then there's also some that did more than you would ever know or more than you would ever think. And that maybe you don't talk about it a whole lot. So Hugh, I know sometimes you and I have talked about how our country, which is really still at war, and we don't really think about that. And is that something that you see that Patriot Point and other organizations are needed to address this kind of the war dragging on and on? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. And because, there's so many other things going on in the news, and people lose focus. And unfortunately, our society has very short memories. But you have to realize that we've been at war for almost 20 years now. And just because it's not in the news and you don't see it every day, it's not in the paper, doesn't mean that there are not veterans out there who are still suffering from the injuries that they received, whether it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or yesterday. There are still operations going on around the globe. Friends of mine are out still doing that you'll never know about. But, when they come back, and if they still have issues. And so places like Patriot Point are as vital today as they will be tomorrow, as they were, 10 years ago or whatever. There will always be a need for these organizations and these locations for our wounded vets to be able to come and decompress and get their heads straight and their body straight. And, this is never going away. And I will say that, from Reverend Ron's time to now, the military veteran is treated so much better than they were years ago in Vietnam. And we all saw the, news coverage of that. And so, I get thanked for my service all the time. And just people are way more aware of what our military does for our country and what they do for us every day. But there's a price to be paid for that. And, I volunteered. There's a lot of volunteers out there. Nobody forced us to do this. And, we put out, we got injured. And when we come back, we need a place to go. And, Patriot Point is a place like that. And it has done a tremendous amount for a lot of people. And we're just going to continue doing great things and helping folks out.
I agree that, it's a burden that is still being carried, and that, like you said earlier, people come back with physical burdens, but they also come back with burdens that may not be able to be seen. And Reverend Ron and Hugh, I thank you guys for what you do and for everything that you do. Before we leave here, we're going to roll a list of names of just as a chance to recognize some of our local heroes. So before we sign off, we're going to go ahead and roll this list of names. Well, we're having some technical difficulties here with our list. While we get that queued up, I wanted to let you guys know that not only can you watch this again taped, but we also tomorrow night we have another really special and important local feature tomorrow night at 7 p.m. That would be Thursday, November 12th. The Heart of Chesapeake Country Heritage Area and the Dorchester Business Resource Group are going to be presenting the inaugural Rising Up Awards to celebrate those who have responded to the upheaval of this year's crisis with innovation, creativity, and compassion. And we also will have next week at this same time on Wednesday night, we're going to have another important community feature. We're going to have the candidate forum for the city runoff election, which is December 1st. And that will be for the mayoral race for Ward 2 and Ward 3. That'll be Wednesday, next Wednesday at 7 p.m. And that will be done by the League of Women Voters. So at this point, let's go to that list of names, and then we'll come back and sign off. Well, we're still having technical difficulties with it. And I guess that's the way it goes sometimes. Adapt, improvise, and overcome, as they say. Right, gentlemen?
That's right. Well, Hugh, the Vets Helping Vets go on trips. We've had bus trips to the World War II Memorial, the Vietnam Wall, an air show. There is a Veterans Memorial or Veterans exhibit in Denton, Maryland with the Caroline County Historical Society. We've been on a trip there. We've been on a trip to the air show at Dover, the Aviation Museum. So I can see Vets Helping Vets are going to have to plan a trip down to Patriots Point. We don't want your activities, but we'd like to tour the facility. We can get the word out. That's what we do at Vets Helping Vets. We're like a brain trust of what we know and can get this word out to the veterans that could use your Patriots Point. Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. And thank you for that offer. And you guys are welcome. Absolutely. Anytime you can get down there. And, again, every, I hate to use the cliche, every dollar counts, but it absolutely does, especially, this year in 2020. I encourage everyone to get onto the website. If you donate 50 cents, $1, whatever it is, or your time is exceptionally important. And Reverend Ron, please, the invitation is always open for your group to come down.
No, thank you very much, Hugh.
All right, gentlemen, third time's a charm. We're going to roll the list of names here to honor and remember our local veterans. Here we go. Gentlemen, as we get ready to close out the show, Reverend Ron, you reminded me of an anecdote that I wanted to share, something that was very meaningful for me, and that's when I went with some family, including my maternal grandfather, to the World War II Memorial, and I think that it really encapsulates what we're talking about here. And he was not a super outgoing guy, but when he went, he was in his 90s, and he went around to all these strangers and was shaking their hands and was just enlivened in a way that I'd never seen before. And he was just almost giddy from connecting with his brothers. He wasn't a social butterfly, but he was just going from person to person, and they're reminiscing, sharing stories. And gentlemen, we got to stick together. I thank you for both of what you do, Reverend Ron James and Hugh Middleton. Reverend Ron, as you do your Vets Helping Vets and your leadership at the local service organization of the VFW, and Hugh Middleton, who carrying your tradition of taking the fight to where it needs to be down there at Patriot Point. And I appreciate both of your service, and I appreciate both of your time. And I know we're surrounded by a community of really good people who who all you've got to do is ask and they're ready to help us. So
Well,
thanks for what you do, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mike. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week for Cambridge Community Conversations.